Hey, this is Brandon Turner with the Better Life with Brandon Turner podcast, and you are listening to Investories podcast with John and Kyle. What's your story?
Welcome to Investories. Whether you're a seasoned pro looking for that next step or a newbie investor not sure where to start, Investories unlocks the mindset, strategies, and techniques of high performers across business, real estate, and investing to help you level up your journey to financial freedom. This is Investories.
Welcome to the Investories podcast. And with me is, you thought he'd vanished. You thought he was buried under a deck somewhere. It's Carl Robertson.
John, what's up, buddy? It's been a while.
Yeah, where
miss
have
you,
you
man. Man, we've been everywhere. It's been a heck of a summer. Now the kids are back to school, so
same.
Things have really calmed down. I'm actually really excited to be back here because I've missed you, man. This is always kind of a highlight of my week to be able to do this.
Cathartic.
It is.
Talking
yeah,
real
we
estate.
get to hammer out some real estate and business type topics that I don't get to talk about with my wife so much. So yeah, this is my fun time. I'm glad to be back.
Oh, good. It's good to have you back. Yeah, and to be fair, yeah, summer's been. We were organised this summer, and we batched a bunch of episodes, and we recorded a few with just me, and that's the reason. So I was traveling, Kyle was traveling, and kind of it's weird, right? It's kind of like going back to school.
No, that's actually a pretty good way to put it. And I don't know. You almost kind of got to breathe a sigh of relief when summer's over. Like, it's fun, but just the pace of life is so stinking fast. And then you go, kids go back to school and you got all the sports stuff and everything. And you're thinking, oh, I can slow down a little bit. But then like the evening life just takes off. Day life is okay. As far as business goes, I'm not as busy right in this time as I am during the summer, but man, yeah, the kids stuff. My kids are now at that age where my youngest is even in sports. He's 6 and he's doing flag football.
Oh, cool.
And soccer. And we got like every kid in 2 sports, and it's just nonstop all day long, all night long.
Oh, we've got that next. Yeah, my little one's excited to go play soccer, which is kind of cool.
Yeah,
she needs to start. If she's going to play for England, she really needs to start working on it now.
The clock is ticking.
This procrastination of not playing for England is under 4s would be an interesting team. What was the coolest thing you did this summer?
Well, my wife and I, we had our 15-year wedding anniversary, which was in August. But we went to. I think I talked about this already because I have done a couple episodes since I got back. But we went over to Europe.
Ah, yeah.
And we also went to Africa, specifically Morocco. And I don't know how up on the news everybody is, but they had that quake, which just happened. What was that? About a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks ago now. And so that was super sad because that was honestly the highlight of our trip. Was way better than France or anywhere else that we went in Europe. We loved Marrakesh, Morocco. It was just such a cool place. And to hear that city just got decimated, because a lot of that stuff there is just, mud bricks and some concrete, and they don't really have a super established infrastructure, building codes and things like that. Everything, get a good earthquake and the whole city can fall down. And which is kind of what happened. Luckily it was not centered in Marrakesh. It was about 40 miles south of Marrakesh. But unfortunately a lot of those, Berber villages just got destroyed up in the Atlas Mountains, and a lot of Marrakesh got damaged. I spoke with the guy he was kind of our host at our Riyadh or hotel, I guess you'd call it. And on WhatsApp, just because we had been communicating that way while I was in Marrakesh. And I sent him a message a couple of weeks ago, the day after it happened. I said, "Are you okay? Is everything okay? Your family okay?" And he replied back and said, "We're safe. The Riyadh is safe. However, nobody can go inside any buildings. We've all been living outside for the last 24 hours, sleeping on sidewalks. And so the pain over there is real. It's kind of sad."
Yeah, that is sad. Yeah, I love that city. Shout out to our European friends. You're not as good as Marrakesh. So according to Carl, I love everyone, so it's fine.
Whatever.
But Marrakesh, go support them, and when they're open for business again, go check it out. It's kind of like throwing yourself to a whole new world, and
it is
exploring,
It's just insane.
And there's cool Western influences as well. So it's not like completely alien, and the people are amazing. Everyone's super friendly.
Gosh, they want
to sell you a rug.
They do, and they will. They've got their system over there. So unless you really want a rug, I would avoid that particular part of it. But
Yeah,
and they do make exquisite rugs. Don't get me
yeah,
wrong,
they're
but
great.
it is a very I don't really lots of peddlers on the street
Hmm.
selling things, and it's actually adds to the fun and the charm, though.
Yeah,
You know,
it's
if you
vibrant.
just know how to deal with that sort of thing. But the people, like you said, just so stinking friendly. Everybody, we never felt unsafe one time, and we were walking down narrow alleyways, 2,000-year-old roads, and in between these big buildings, and we always felt perfectly safe because everybody looked at us, would give us a big smile. It was just great. It was awesome.
That was
Love to go
cool.
back.
Wow. Well, so my coolest thing was I saved a baby turtle.
What?
So we went to Mexico, Tulum in Mexico, which is really nice, totally different to
Yes,
Marrakesh.
agreed.
It's kind of like LA meets a beachy kind of, what's the word? Caribbean. Well, how do you say it?
Caribbean, Caribbean. Yeah,
Caribbean. Yeah, it's kind of LA restaurants meet Caribbean beachy kind of vibes, and it's lovely. We lucked out. We had an empty hotel with an empty pool, and all the
nice.
attention we'd ever need from staff, which was incredible.
Oh, that's great.
But yeah, it was like a week of just swimming and teaching a little one to swim, and digging sandcastles and all that cool stuff, and incredible food as well. But it was baby turtle season, so they have these little roped off areas on the beach
Yeah.
with a little stake in the ground, and some hotels put a little sign on it saying "baby turtles cooking" or something like that. And then at night, they're all like scrambling out and running into the sea.
Oh,
Or
like when it's dark,
yeah,
that's when they
so
take.
they
That's
they
when they make their
navigate on
run.
the moon. They see the moon and they run towards the sea.
Ah,
Or if there's a bright restaurant, they go the other way. So this little turtle was running towards the restaurant. I managed to scoop him up and put him towards the sea. It's so cute. It's
you're a
so
hero,
cool.
John. You're a
I
hero.
was it in
That's
my
awesome.
daughter's eyes, in a 3-year-old's eyes. I was the greatest man on the planet.
Absolutely.
For
Yeah.
the next day, you rescued a turtle. Remember? So
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah.
It was cool.
Well, very cool, man. Anything you got going on for the fall coming up?
My plan is to try and buy a building in Cleveland.
Oh, building in Cleveland. What kind of building is this?
I would like something that's not turnkey, that has value add. I want it to be in and I don't know what the technical term is, a cool neighborhood, a trendy neighborhood.
That's a technical term. Yeah.
Yeah. So, mid-towny, artsy, I guess Class B, Class A is probably a stretch, but Class B neighborhood, 15 plus units, something that is rentable kind of immediately, but with a bit of time. It can be kind of bought up, if there's additional units that can be built or refurbished or part refurbished, all that good stuff. And then, those are the key ones. I think the other sweet spot would be some kind of midterm rental play. So I'm calling it like a flex or a hybrid model. So that a couple of units can be used for travel nurses. So Cleveland Clinic's there, massive medical organization with a lot of traveling nurses going in there. And there's other pockets around the city. So yeah, that's what I want to do. I don't know if I'll close it this year.
Just to clarify, you're talking, because I heard you say midterm, you're talking residential, not commercial 15 units, but residential.
I think, yeah, I'm open to it.
Looking for a little bit of everything. Yeah.
I think commercial, probably, yeah. And depending on size, there may be a fundraising portion. I'll try and take it down myself, but I'm not a man of infinite cash, so as most of us aren't, right? So
there's nothing wrong with raising a little bit of money. There's nothing wrong with that. So
super exciting. Yeah.
I got to know about, so Cleveland's not a market I've ever really looked at.
Mm-hmm.
So other than the traveling nurse part of it, what kind of drew you over to Cleveland?
So there's a lot of rejuvenation in a couple of neighborhoods. So there's a lot of work going on to bring neighborhoods like Trenton and Shaker Heights are being invested in. They're putting in new roadways, that kind of stuff. There's been a lot of decline in population, and actually that seems to maybe changing a little bit, or at least in these pocket neighborhoods. It was, I think last year, it was one of the fastest growing employment neighborhoods in the country. And I think there's another market south of there that's growing pretty quickly as well.
Where did you find that information? So was this a news article, or do you have a resource for people?
So a couple of sources, right? Census data, news articles, and here's my killer tip, broker information and connecting with brokers and talking to broker investors or agent investors or investors that own the space. So can you speak to someone who knows Cleveland like the back of their hand, as a Brit would say? They know the market inside out. They can talk to what assets are where, what's good, what's not so good, down to the street of where they would or wouldn't want to invest and where they have and haven't put their money. And that becomes really interesting. And then the other thing is then the group I run with. So that's how I frame it. But there's a whole cohort of people that I connect with. They're multifamily investors. Some of them are syndicators. Some of them do JVs, and just talking to people that are investing in Cleveland and kind of what they're seeing in the market, and just getting that kind of holistic picture of it. The other thing I found when I was away is I was using Google Bard to put together like key metrics. That's very interesting. I think you have to sense check and review every single number and to not take it at face value. But you can actually go and ask Bard, which is their AI, it's like ChatGPT, hey, what are the top 10 markets for these metrics and then these metrics, and can you refine? And it's really interesting. That's the future.
Is Google Bard, I know that like ChatGPT, and maybe this has changed since the last time I looked, they were only updated to the end of what was it, like 2020 or 2019 or something like that. Is Google Bard up to date? Like, do they have today's information? It is. Okay. Well, that's a big piece right there. I like using ChatGPT just for random stuff. I like to argue with it once in a while. And I mean, come on, it's AI. Okay. Who doesn't like to argue? It kind of test it. It's
episode
a weird hobby,
title there. Why Kyle argues with AI.
Yeah. Well, we my kids think it's hilarious because I'm like, you're talking to a robot right now, and this thing will talk to you just conversationally, just like I can talk to you. And so, they want to ask the funniest questions, like how many pugs are in the world, and things like that. And so I'd start asking a little bit harder questions, like things about philosophy or things about religion, just all the real hot button topics you don't talk to people about. And you always get the same thing. And then you can tell it things like, I don't want you to respond with this exact same sentence over and over because you keep repeating yourself. And it'll reply back and be like, I'm really sorry. I'll try to make my responses more human-like, And
that's
then
the scary part. They're really friendly.
It's like, so bizarre. Yeah. And it doesn't matter what you do. You can't goad the thing. It's never going to get mad. It's just, I don't know. It's kind of a funny piece of technology. Are you trying to confuse
AI? Is that what's going
on? I tried so many times, and most of the time it'll either give you wrong information just because it doesn't have anything else. It doesn't have accurate information, or it'll just say I'm impartial and I can't give you any opinions because I'm a piece of technology, which is true. But it's really cool. It is the future. I agree with you on that.
Working in that space, or working tech, not AI, but everything there needs to be verified. The other thing that I found interesting is using it to write, and using it as a tool to write posts or research things for this show. Even there's a formula to it, and it's clever on the surface, and then you kind of dig in and you see the patterns, and you're like, okay, is this really?
Yeah.
So
no,
it's only getting smarter, right?
Yeah, that's the plan for him anyhow. We'll see what it looks like in 5 years. I mean, it's already made leaps and bounds. So, but yeah, we've done things like I've used it to help my daughter in math class. I mean, she was in the 5th grade when we started using this thing, and I'd say probably 5 out of 10 times it was wrong. I'm talking like long division or something like that, because I'd always double check it just to make sure, and it was wrong. And you can correct it and just be like, no, actually, if you do this, this, and this, the correct answer is this, and it'll respond back and be like, my apologies, you were right. I'm just like, okay,
great.
Whatever. Yeah.
Tell that to the teacher.
Yeah, exactly.
Why were you wrong on this? The AI said that. Anyway, that's right. So yeah, collating market information and trying to make that, I guess holistic is the right word, but trying to take a whole view of that. What's your take on that? What do you do?
All the stuff that you're sitting here stuttering. I can't even talk. I do all of the things that you were talking about right there. But for the most part, I want to know, because you kind of talked a little bit about how specific areas can be very different from other areas of the same city. And so by talking to boots on the ground, which would be realtors, property managers, contractors. There's a handful of other ones, but just give phone and local businesses to the property. Like, so if you've identified the property already, I like to call those businesses around and just be like, hey, is this a it's a crappy area, and most of the time they're pretty honest. They'll just be like, "Oh my God, I would never live here. I just make money here," which is great feedback. I like hearing that kind of stuff. But census data is a really good one. I like looking at. I understand that past performance is a poor indicator of future performance, but I still like looking at past trends in population growth and things like that. It just like just something as simple as Wikipedia, looking at their demographics tab, it'll talk about, decade over decade population growth. It's just good info. It's nothing I would base an investment on. It's just good info, if nothing else. At least you know that people have been consistently moving there for a long time. So it's probably had some sort of stable base for a long time. But you still have to verify, like you said, what's going on right now. And I've talked about the Milken Institute report here on the show a handful of times. I really like that. It's a free resource. And if people aren't using the Milken Institute report, there are other ones out there, but this one is it's very comprehensive. And they rank 300 cities that are considered emerging markets from 1 to 300, large cities and small cities. There's a free PDF. It's on their website. It's a little bit hard to find. It's kind of buried in the website.
Oh, we'll put a link in.
But yeah, we'll find it and maybe put a link in the show notes so people can see that. But they update it every March. So I believe the one that's out right now is 2023. Maybe it's April. But they're not paying us to say this either. This is just legitimately a good resource for everybody to check out if you're just kind of trying to shop for, different markets. This doesn't really help you with neighborhoods. That's going to be on your own due diligence. But I really like the Milken Institute report. But back to Cleveland, because I'm super curious about this. I love talking to people about out-of-state investment just because that's what I do. So business plan, you talked about midterm rentals, but you also talked about you were looking for a building that needs work. Is that right?
Potentially needs work, or really more if there's a value add piece. So like, can you build a couple of extra units, or is it halfway through refurb and 50% occupancy? Those kind of variables, rather than this whole building needs starting afresh. I like the idea of that. I just don't know if that's a good idea for the first kind of go at this.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you dug into, I guess, what your process would be for doing a long distance remodel like that?
Yeah, I feel like I'm building the right team. So I have investor contact. I have family contacts there, which is kind of cool.
Oh, excellent.
I have investor contacts there, and I now have some through investor contacts have some good leads on GCs as well.
Excellent.
To give kind of suitable kind of advice around that. The other thing that's really interesting is the broker I've been talking to a lot, and he's been, I want to get him on the pod. He's really interesting, and he's super gracious with his time. We talk a lot about how much price per square foot, but also renovations per square foot, those kind of things. So that gives you a bit more comfort in pulling numbers together. Like, how much would it be to vault a ceiling rather than add extra units in the attic? It may add value there. Or how much would it be to convert garages into other units? That kind of stuff. So that's really interesting as well.
Yeah, I love the idea of a lot of people like to use, especially when you have, and I've done this, when you don't have history in a particular market, you go to Google, right? And you're like, okay, I'll look up and see who the contractors are, who the big players are in the area, and then I'll start reading their Google reviews. And I guess I've learned over the years that a lot of that stuff is bullshit, for lack of a better term, just because a lot of people are getting, their uncles and their aunts and their brothers and their sisters to get on there and puff up all their Google numbers and makes them look really good, which is a little bit crooked. I like reading the review. I still read the reviews. I don't base my decision on them particularly, but I like reading the reviews that say, hey, so-and-so did my renovation a year ago and everything looks great. Everything's working great. Nothing's fallen apart. Yeah. Those are the ones that really matter. That's not exclusive to real estate either, or trades, even product reviews and stuff like that. Because one thing I noticed is 9 times out of 10, most people go review something either the second they get it home or the second the contractor gets done building it. But how does the thing perform? How does it work? Same thing with real estate. If you're looking at if somebody puts a review, hey, so-and-so just finished renovating my bathroom and did a wonderful job. And then 6 months later, it's leaking. There's mold on the ceiling, but you don't know that because they left them a 5-star review because of the initial finished product. So there's a lot more to vetting these people than just looking up reviews. Take reviews with a grain of salt. what you said about, dealing with some other investors and finding out who they use and who they have a history with that's gold. That's where you're going to find the good stuff. I like that.
Yeah, the review piece is really interesting, and I'm very skeptical of any reviews. You buy anything online, there's always Bob S says this is the best product of, all that social proof kind of for sale stuff, right through to things like the Better Business Bureau is funded by the people that are the businesses that are being reported on. It's like,
isn't that amazing?
How does that work? How does that work? So that's really interesting.
Quick story, and this is not real estate related, but talking about reviews, we purchased a $2,000 refrigerator. This was 2 years ago.
Jeez.
And the reason we did it was because it had a whole bunch of really good reviews, and it was from Home Depot. And we're talking like 4.75 stars out of 5, whole bunch of reviews. We're like, oh, it can't really go wrong here, right? So we buy it. 2 years later, all of a sudden we open up the freezer and everything's starting to thaw. We're like, oh crap, we got to clean the coils. We got to, So I did all of that stuff, and by the next day, now the refrigerator is as cold as it was. And so I'm like, oh crap. So now we got to call a repair person, but we thought we were still under warranty, called on it, and turned out we weren't by about 2 months. And so I started looking online. I went back to Home Depot and started really reading these reviews, and class action lawsuit. I'm getting my refund, class action lawsuit. And apparently all of these reviews that were 5 stars was like, I just got the refrigerator home and it looks so great in my kitchen. And then, but everybody else, if it wasn't that, then it was a 1-star review and call the claims department. We ended up getting a full refund on the fridge once we mentioned that to the people from the company that built the refrigerator. So got all of our money back and went off and bought something else. And so yeah, take reviews. That's a long way to say take reviews with a grain of salt.
With a grain of salt, yeah. And it's funny. I don't want to jump too far around this, but I was chatting to a relative of mine, my wife's nephew, and he's really interested in real estate. I told him to start going to meetups and meeting proper old school proper investors and maybe offering to do their social or whatever you can do, right? And he keeps stumbling over these online only, Instagram only real estate gurus or projects. And so I've given him a list of questions to ask a potential real estate investment. And the last one he sent to me was Airbnb arbitrage.
Oh.
And I guess there's like, we all learn, right? There's a critical thinking element to learning things and applying a bit of cynicism or just critical thinking. My first red flag was they spelled Airbnb wrong on the front page of the website.
Red flag.
Yeah, red flag right there. So I gave him, do you want to hear the questions?
I do.
Okay. So I gave him this list of questions, said, anyone you meet online, and I guess he had a Zoom with these guys. Anyone you meet online, these are the questions you should at least ask these. So first one, this is quite straightforward. What are the typical risks? Right. And then you need to review how they talk to those. If they say there's no risk, okay.
There's no risk here.
Yeah.
It's 100% guaranteed. Look at how good the market is.
So arbitrage, so noting it was arbitrage, and basically, I think everyone knows what Airbnb arbitrage is, but you rent a place with a master lease, and also you rent a place with a commercial lease, like an apartment, and then you put it on Airbnb. You pay the owner the monthly lease, and you make the money the wedge between what it rents for on Airbnb and the lease payment, and you take care of the property and you do all the management and maintenance. And the idea is you're going to have high footfall, but you're going to also look after the property because it's your business. And what they were doing was fundraising. They don't want to use any of their own money for it. So they're going to arbitrage. So obviously, pointing out the things like, well, that's great, but then there's no asset. You just own it.
They're arbitraging the arbitrage. So. Yeah, interesting.
Very clever. The next one is, how is my money secured? Bearing in mind it's being used to pay rent. So that was kind of interesting. Another cynical point of mine is there was no one listed. There was no personnel of the company. It was completely faceless. It's like, can I meet other people within the company? Who are they? Yeah. Who's the CEO? All
Who's
that kind
of staff?
Of stuff.
Yeah.
How big are you? Next was more the kind of the day-to-day tactics of what they do. How many units do you manage? How many units do you personally invest in?
Yeah.
Or how much have you personally invested in the business? how many investors are you currently working with? Can I talk to one of them?
Absolutely. And
How will
that's
you
just that's just
Yeah,
basic stuff right there.
I think this is a good list.
Yeah.
How do you manage market downturns?
Mm,
So if Airbnb busts, it has, which makes me think that's why they were raising.
right.
What are you going to do, right? So, and then I put finally, ask for a background. Do they invest themselves? What does that look like? What's their track record? All that good stuff. And then the final one is you could point out the spelling mistakes on their
Yeah.
website, which there was numerous. And
That's insane.
I'm a writing kind of guy. I'm a
Same.
content guy, so
Yeah.
I see that and that's annoying.
Yeah,
I
that's
can't get past it.
especially when that's literally what you're doing is Airbnb arbitrage, and you can't even spell Airbnb right. That's just
Yeah,
that's just
or
crazy to me.
arbitrage. I think actually.
Oh no.
So, oh, and two.
Don't most platforms autocorrect for you?
Yeah,
It's
they
like
do.
you
Yeah,
got to
they
really
do.
try to screw that up. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah. So, is there anything you'd add to that? What else do you think? I like this list.
I think anything, I've got a list of property management questions that I ask every property manager. And I think that they would all work in this situation. And you already hit on, the vast majority of them, but like, what do you do when you run into problems? What if there are, issues with police in your units? And what if somebody throws a party and destroys it? What's your backup plan with, getting renovations done and your downtime? And, all of that stuff. And it's different from long-term, which is what I do. I don't do any short or mid-term stuff. So a lot of my questions are more specific to things like, long-term management, like contract stuff, fees, all those types of things, which, if your family member was looking at, just giving money to these people so that they could operate their business and expecting a return, then I'm not sure that a lot of my questions would really apply to his situation so much.
Yeah, I think where it stems from is he's youngish, he's 19, 20 years old. He's hungry to make money and he wants the fast track kind of easy
thing.
button, and it doesn't work. It doesn't exist. It's really hard to explain that these gurus and people selling all this stuff on Instagram, it's not great. I was reading an article the other day about the financial Instagram kind of movement and TikTok movement of financial influencers or finfluencers. And it's nuts. It's just like they're out there in the world giving advice, financial advice, no qualification.
Yeah, buy my course. Yeah, it drives me nuts. And the thing, one thing that I talk to a lot of people about is, first of all, mid or short-term rental or mid-term rental arbitrage. It's not investing. You're not investing anything at that point. If you're giving money as an investor, you're going to get a return. And when that money's back to you, now you have no assets still. I'm talking about, even investing in things like syndications. It's a good place to put your money because your money is earning a return, but there's no real long-term aspect unless that specific setup says, hey, we're going to have this for 10 years or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about things like fix and flips, wholesaling, arbitrage. None of that is investing. It's just a matter of, especially fix and flips and wholesale. That's a job that you're not,
Mm-hmm.
unless you're doing the BRRRR method, you're not selling at the end of it. You're not doing the actual flip, but you are doing the fix part. That's investing. But if the intention is to buy something, fix it up and then sell it and make a profit, you don't really have an asset there. You've got a job. And so I don't know, it's just kind of a side marker that, we run into that kind of thing all the time. And I've got no issue because, fix and flipping and wholesaling, it'll get you a really nice chunk of cash, which you can then use for long-term investing or mid-term invest or whatever. But it's just a matter of what are you doing with your money? Are you actually investing? When the market goes down and there's no houses selling, how does a wholesaler make money? How does a flipper make money when interest rates go through the roof and they can't afford to refinance out of their deal and they lose the deal because they've got such high debt service?
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, sorry. Soapbox.
No,
Soapbox time.
I like it. I think we're in a strange time, right? We've still got high house prices and they haven't really come down, which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
We've still got high rents because of that, or as an effect of that.
And all of us that own long-term rentals are hoping that they stay up there. Recession is actually, or not recession, but inflation is super helpful for things like rentals, and it's, you're able to, This is the time when a lot of people are raising all their rents to unprecedented prices. But at some point, we're kind of almost creating a little bubble for ourselves, because when the recession comes and people lose their jobs and everybody starts cohabitating and moving out of places, now all of a sudden you're going to get more vacancy. And then when you get more vacancy, it brings down rent prices. And then you're going to start seeing the deflationary. And I'm not saying this happens every time. This just does happen. You get that deflationary period where, some expenses will start coming down, but not as fast as the rents are coming down and not as fast as the vacancy is going up. So you got to find kind of that happy medium. I'm not trying to scare people, because, honestly, this is the way I make my living. But there has to be that happy place where you're not over leveraged and you're not overexposed and you got long-term debt and you're done everything you can to set yourself up for long-term success, as opposed to just living off of bridge financing or hard money when you're doing fix and flips. Those types of things can get you into a lot of trouble really fast, especially in this kind of market.
Well, I think there's another shoe to drop, right? Which is that it's the debt. Bubble's a strong word, but the kind of the choke of debt in commercial and in non-fixed. And I think what a lot of people are doing now, currently buying houses on an ARM, so a variable rate, after 3 or 4 years, I think we're going to see that again down the line. If they struggle to refi onto lower interest rates, there may be another balloon to pop later on. No, so what I was explaining to my wife's nephew was that, cool, we've had a really slow summer up in Big Bear. And if you want to rent a Big Bear Airbnb, let me know. Link in the show notes. We'll cut you a good deal. Show discount. But we've had that slowdown. So we still, we had a really good start to the year. We had a really good winter. So it's not been too bad. But every time we make a payment, it's a mortgage payment, not a rental payment. So we're paying down a loan rather than paying someone else's loan, if that makes sense. So it's been really interesting. The other thing I think now is owning Big Bear is we got a really good interest rate. How is there more value in the debt than the house? That's kind of an interesting question.
Yeah, I don't think there's more value, but there's an incredible amount of that. Exactly. It not just, I'd say way more than a bit. I love good debt, and what I consider good debt, probably the same as everybody, is low interest and long term. Whether that's a bank debt or a private note or anything along those lines. So, if you've got good debt on it and you can swing that sort of thing during the long down times, then that's a fantastic investment. I'm not sitting here making crystal ball predictions or anything. I have no idea. No thanks. But if you look at the history of real estate, yes, we can have really long down periods, and they suck. They can become really trying for investors. They typically come back. Even the Great Recession, it took a lot of years. It was almost 10 years before median prices ended up equalizing with what they were prior to the recession. But they did come back, and then they blew way past those limits because, we had been in such a depressed market for such a long time. So everything was just kind of bottled up. And then we had the last, 3 years since COVID, 3+ years since COVID, where everything just went gangbusters, and it kind of created a little bit of a bubble. So this can actually, I like to look at this from the standpoint that this can be really healthy for the real estate market. Like you said, there's just not a lot of demand that's going down. The demand is still there. We're still getting multiple offers, but the listings are way down. So not very many people are selling, but there's still just as many buyers. And so they're still clamoring over these few listings that are out there. What can make you a little bit nervous is when there's not multiple offers and there's still a low inventory. That's when things start getting a little bit scary, I guess, to a degree. But just remember that this is a natural market cycle, and we're supposed to go through this once every 6 to 8 years. And we skipped one. We had some small ones, just some small flash crashes and small recessions that happened between 2008 and now, like 2016. Into 2016 in December, I know that we kind of hit something like that lasted 3 or 4 months. So, it was really short, but we've been in a down market much longer than that now. This needed to happen. And although it sucks and everybody's like, I'm not making money or I'm losing money, it's a thing, and we deal with it so that we can come out on the other side and make money again, or continue. If you're a really resourceful investor, you can make money in every market. There's lots of ways to do it. Lots of assumption deals right now with low interest, FHA and VA loans. And yes, if you are a veteran, you're not a veteran, you can still assume a VA loan. So be looking for things like even your neighbor's house. There was one next door to me that went into foreclosure. on FHA. And I tried for the longest time to just assume this. She didn't want to do a sub two. She had no equity because she bought the house a year ago and never made a payment, and ended up just moving out. And I happened to get a hold of her and said, hey, I'd really like to take over this house. Would you be willing to do some sort of creative financing, like a sub two deal? And she said no. Even if I paid her, she still said no. I said, well, will you let me assume it? Because it's in pre-foreclosure now. And she's like, if you want to do that and you want to go through the bank process, you go right ahead. And of course, the bank never replied to me. I tried for like months, and then it went up for auction. So, but
Wait,
those kinds of...
I was looking at a house the other day and they're in pre-foreclosure. What's that process look like?
Most banks that hold these notes are going to have some sort of an assumptions department if it's an assumable loan. So like conventional financing, no, you're looking for assumable FHA, VA type loans. If they're in a pre-foreclosure, they've probably got some sort of back payments that are due the bank.
Mm-hmm.
And so it'll go to auction and they'll set a minimum price. And then, if somebody bids
it's on the
that
market right now, which is weird, right?
with a realtor.
Mm-hmm.
So it hasn't foreclosed yet. So it could be subject to a short sale, where the bank would be willing to take a lesser amount. You just have to write the purchase and sale agreement. The seller has to sign it, and then it goes to the bank for approval or disapproval. They could still say no. So if it's an assumable loan, I like that route, just because if it does close, if you buy it traditionally and you have to go get new debt on it, then you're going to have an interest rate of around 7.5%, which is just not as good. So the assumable loans are super nice to have right now. Or a subject to, which is virtually impossible to do if it's on market. It's just, because, realtors want to get paid, and it's kind of a difficult thing. A lot of people try to do sub twos without any money out of their pocket whatsoever. Not always, and just, a lot of them, that's kind of the dream. So anyways, yeah. What I was saying is you approach the bank that holds the note and ask them if you can get in touch with their assumptions department. And you got to have the loan number. You can get that from the owner, and then they'll look it over and be like, okay, yeah, this is assumable. If you want to start, here's all the paperwork. And assumptions take a while. They're not fast. So if you can get the bank to, kind of a stay of execution as far as the foreclosure goes, then you can probably get them to wait long enough for the assumption process to finish out. You get a good asset with a really nice, cheap interest rate and a long-term debt.
Love that. I'm going to get on the phone after this.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, and that's a house for the family. So speaking of houses, the only other thing on my list, Kyle, is you're building well, you're not physically building a house. You're having a house. Someone's building a house for you.
Yeah. We are building it. Well, yeah, our contractors are building a house, and we're moving right along. We've got, walls and roof are up. The inside is still just bare bones, but we are starting trying to finish up, starting the finishing touches of the exterior, which is, siding and paint. And
Very
we're
cool.
hoping for move in around Christmas time.
Wow,
I don't really know yet.
That's a hell of a Christmas present.
Yeah, it is. And, we're probably going to finish it ourselves, just because my wife and I, when I say ourselves, I mean us. There's just certain things that I want to be able to do, and I'm kind of a hands-on person. So I'd like to kind of get in there and get my hands dirty and be able to tell my kids that I helped build this house, even if it is just most of the finished work and interior.
Here.
Yeah,
this is the one
right there.
Yeah,
drove that in all by myself. So
amazing.
Yeah, we're really excited about it. It's a cool house, and I told my wife when I sold our family home out from under us so many years ago that that long story, but when I sold that house, I told her, I said, give me 2 years and I will build you your dream house. 2 years, and well, that was 4 years ago now. So I'm already a liar, but we did own the property.
You still did it.
Yeah, I got the property on time. I just didn't have the house, which is important. So now we have the house. So we're ready.
So what's the biggest kind of tip for anyone looking to build their own house?
They're expensive. I don't know. I don't know. Nobody told me that houses were so damn expensive, but man, these things are expensive, especially these days. But just budget the crap out of this thing. Always put your 10% overage in there with it. This particular house, we wanted to get to the point where we didn't have debt. So we saved up money for a long time and made some real estate investments. And we were able to save up enough money to where we could take that giant burden of debt off our shoulders while we're building. And we will put debt on later because your return on equity is zero. And we would like to do some more investing. So for now, we're building the house at our own pace with our own money. And I know not everybody can do that. I totally understand. Just make sure whatever you're doing, it's the longest term debt that you can possibly get. This is your personal house. You want to take as much risk out of this as you possibly can so that you can secure your lifestyle. Because if your personal life isn't secure, what does it do to your business life? Everything's secure, and vice versa. If your business life isn't secure, your personal life goes to hell as well. So just do everything you can to do it as cheaply as possible, but not sacrifice quality, which usually ends up meaning you got to put in some work yourself. And I'm okay with that. We want this to be, as sustainable and manageable for as long as possible.
That's cool. And you have a PM, project manager?
Not on this. No.
Okay.
I'm the general contractor on this. So I'm just hiring all the subs, like the framer and electrician, plumber, all that type of stuff.
Wow.
We do hire project managers for like our long distance renovations. So like we had an 18 unit apartment complex that was a full renovation. And because that was 2,300 miles away from where we live, it's kind of hard to have eyes on that. So we hired a project manager for that. And that person was super, super valuable.
How do you choose the right PM?
So interestingly enough, our project manager ended up being the same company as our property manager. So we purchased this property, this 18 units, 100% occupied, and we knew that it required significant updates to the tune of right around $500,000 of just interior stuff. That didn't count the exterior stuff. So we knew that this was going to be so large that we needed to have eyes on a weekly basis. And, being all the way over here on the West Coast, we didn't have that option. So we started looking around for a project manager, and we did a lot of due diligence. Did a lot of due diligence trying to find the different experiences from other investors, other companies who have used these services, and we came up with, and just so happened to be the person that kept getting recommended was the one we already hired as our property manager. And so we lucked out on that. But for everybody else, there are listings out there, just business listings. If you want to look up property manager, Memphis, Tennessee, I don't know, wherever, you will find a lot of businesses that'll do this kind of stuff for you. And they typically will charge X amount of dollars. Everybody does their charging structure different. This particular person, we were already paying 9% management. And so we ended up paying her an extra 5% of our gross monthly income on these properties as compensation for being our project manager. Money well spent. It was very expensive, but money very well spent. Mm-hmm. And she was there every week taking pictures. She was the liaison between us and the contractor, so I didn't have to yell at him if he did something wrong. And she did the yelling for me. It was wonderful. It's just kind of the same way as it works between me and a tenant. She's the one that takes care of, makes all those decisions and the hard calls. So it was wonderful. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say it's either luck or you just hired a really good property manager in the first place. So
probably a little bit of
both.
both.
The PM should sync with that. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, probably a little bit of both, I would say.
Amazing.
And we still have them as our property manager, and this is 3 years later, and they're wonderful. I mean, easily either number one or number two most important, second to the CPA for our business that really makes things work seamlessly.
Well, there you go. Kyle, I didn't have anything else today. This is a random episode.
That's okay. I like random episodes.
It.
Yeah, coming back from a long break is we got lots of stuff to talk about. So
yeah,
maybe people actually like to listen to us, ramble on about random stuff, and let us know if you do. We can do more of these things, or we can bring on a third person if you don't like listening to our voices anymore.
Yeah,
we can talk crap with them too.
Well, I wanted to say, listening wise, we've had a huge audience spike, so I really appreciate every single person listening and every single person that's made it to this part of the podcast. So thank you.
Was that spike because I was gone?
It did go up when you left, actually.
Dang it! I knew it.
I don't think it's related. But I did get horrible emails just because I was on it alone. So I don't know how that works. If you have listened to this, if you've enjoyed it, if you can support us, and you can send us money, but you don't need to send us money. What you can do is share this with a friend or a family member or someone you don't like. Why not, right? But equally, if you could write us a review on whatever platform you're listening to, and if you're checking out our YouTube video, there's a link in the show notes if you're listening to this. But if you're watching on YouTube, we're really close to the magic numbers to monetize. I know advertising, but it will help the show grow and get better guests and bigger guests. So we really would appreciate a like and a subscribe and a share and just kind of engagement. And feel free to engage with us. If you write a comment, on our Instagram page or on YouTube, we will read it and we can respond to it. We're not that big yet, so we're pretty accessible. So if you have questions or topics, or you have suggestions for guests, we would love to hear them, because we love doing this show, and we love doing it for the people that listen, and we hope we add value every time.
Absolutely.
Cool. And with that, we'll be back next week.